Hi everyone. I'm just gonna wait for a second to see if people can see that I'm actually live. Ideally, if anyone can. Oh no, wait, because I won't see it. Yes, I will see the comments. If anyone on Substack specifically could comment and say that they can see me live. Oh, okay, right. Okay, well, actually, you don't need to because I can see that I'm live. I think. Okay, right, fine. I can see that I'm live. That's good. That's all working. I'm on Substack and see. Yes, legend. Okay, amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Right, I will get started then because I want to try and cram in as much as possible into this. And I did make some kind of big claim of like, I'm going to get like 14 years of coaching lessons into 40 minutes. And as I was writing this, I realized that's definitely not going to be possible. But you will leave with at least some lessons, I hope, that whether you're joining us on Commit 6 or not, you can use going forward, either in your own coaching, if you're a coach that's watching, or for your own next fat loss or whatever goal that you have journey. So thank you for tuning in and thank you in advance for your attention. I'm going to make this as concise and impactful as I possibly can, and hopefully really useful and somewhat fun and entertaining as well. As I go through and you have any questions or things pop up, feel free to fire away with them. I've already collated a few questions that people have asked this week, and I'll do a bit of like a science versus bullshit debunk of a few things at the end. So as they pop up, let me know, put it in the comments, and I will make sure that I get to it at the end. So what to expect from this? I'm going to share some quote unquote secrets from the last kind of 14 years of coaching. As I said, ask any questions and I will get to them at the end. And if you want our help, you can join Commit 6 at the end and we can help you apply these. And if not, they're going to be really useful for you to take forward and implement in your own coaching. Now, the first thing I want to do, which I don't think a lot of people do, because sometimes I think that they think it's almost too obvious, is to define what successful fat loss actually is. And I'd be quite interested in people's definitions. So I'm going to go through mine, but if you want to share yours in the comments that are just like one or two sentences or even like a couple of words of like what actually is successful fat loss to you, because it's probably a lot more than just weighing a certain amount. Actually, there's probably a way that you want to feel. There's a life that you want to live in line with that. Otherwise, it would just be like, cool, don't have a life and eat less. You'll lose fat. Fine. But usually there's more to successful fat loss for people, right? So to me, it's not just losing fat. Everybody's probably done that before. That's not really the impressive part. It's doing it in a way that is sustainable and most importantly, that leaves you feeling better and improves your life, doesn't make it worse. And I strongly believe that when done right, diet and exercise and fat loss should and will make your life better, not make your life worse, right? Often we've kind of been maybe it's like marketing or just like inducted to feel a certain way about diet and exercise. Like it's framed in like a negative thing of something that you have to do or you should be doing. And actually, when you take a step back, whether you have a fat loss goal or not, thinking about the food that you put in your body and the way that you move your body and the way that you exercise and treat yourself, like that is ultimately the highest form of self-care. Like real self-care isn't just taking yourself to a spa or having a night off and watching TV or eating chocolate on the sofa. Like actually real self-care and really looking after yourself is exercising consistently, is making sure that you're active and you don't just slob around the house all day or sit down at your desk all day. It's making sure that you fuel your body with healthy, nutritious food. Like that is real self-care. And that's part of successful fat loss. So being fit, lean, and healthy gives you more capacity to live your life to the fullest in an enjoyable way. And that's pretty important because you only get one life, right? And I know a lot of people feel like they don't have time to exercise or they don't have time to diet and that it's going to take up a lot from them. And they almost pile it on as like one more thing that I have to do on top of all the other things that I'm already trying to do and not quite able to do. And actually the whole point in the way that we coach and in the way that like really good, successful fat loss coaching like should be delivered is that in the right dose, and that will look different for different people, but in the right dose and structured in the right way, exercise will give you time back and it will give you energy and productivity and happiness and allow you to enjoy your life more and deal with your busy, stressful life, right? And that busy, stressful life isn't actually going anywhere, that you will have far more resilience to deal with that when you are strong, fit, healthy, and energized. So really trying to reframe that in your head of like, this isn't just another thing that you have to do. And this is why we always start with like getting your energy up first and making sure that you're not drowning and then also trying to lose fat. It's like, okay, let's get you swimming and then we'll add something else on. So to me, that's what successful fat loss looks like, is essentially improving your whole life. So if that's what you're looking for, you are absolutely in the right place. Lisa, mindset change around food, living your best life while losing weight and keeping it off. Yeah. Emma, that literally, it sounds like I've written that and your name is Emma as well. So that wasn't me, I swear. And mindset change 100%. Well, that's also lucky because there's a huge, and I know that Anne, you know this as well, there's a huge part of the Commit 6 program, which is all about mindset. In fact, I've written a whole mindset course. And I would say it is like, it's some of my best work. And one of the reasons it's some of my best work is because I wrote it when I felt so unbelievably heartbroken. And you know, when you just feel something and like actually you're so much better at articulating that and when you're going through something. Anyways, I think it's very, very good. So there you go. But that is part of the Commit 6 course as well. So I'm going to move on to what actually works for fat loss and how to get out of this cycle of always losing weight and regaining weight. Because the truth is, losing fat isn't actually the hard part, it's keeping it off. That's the hard part, right? And our goal for clients is really quite simple. Lose fat in a way that you enjoy while improving your life and then never gain it again. And we do this in an evidence-based coaching format with no fads, no gimmicks, no bullshit. Like that's literally our vibe. Just incredible coaches supporting you through the process who really, really care. And some of them are watching, so I'm sure that they will comment away with things as we go on. These are a couple of things I wanted to go through. And I was thinking about this, like part one is all going to be about why fat loss is really hard, because it is really hard. And one of the reasons I think it's hard is because we overcomplicate it and we somewhat confuse something being simple with it being easy. And that's why I think so many people fall for fads, because they think if it was actually as simple as a calorie deficit, if it was actually as simple as just eating less and moving more, and that would force your body to lose fat, and that was the answer, then surely it wouldn't be this hard. And that's why it's easy to fall for things like, oh, it must be cortisol, or oh, it's probably insulin resistance, or oh, it's because estrogen's dropped during perimenopause, you need my special supplements or my special plan. And you end up massively overcomplicating this. And then you see someone telling you that you shouldn't eat carbs and someone else saying like, but your carbs are your body's favorite energy source. You must eat carbohydrates. And then you're like, wait, what should I be doing? And you get so confused and kind of overwhelmed by things that you end up taking no action, or you end up being quite disappointed in the fact that, oh, you were fully following this person and they were saying cut out carbs and you've been trying to do that and you've been working really hard on it. And then someone else is telling you it's really important to eat carbs. And you're like, well, what the hell should I be doing? Then you end up just doing nothing, right? I totally understand that, because in other areas of my life, I would be the same. You know, if I got completely conflicting information about something and I didn't fully understand it myself, because it's not my area of expertise, that's why I'm going to experts for help. I'd be quite pissed off and kind of overwhelmed by that information too, which often leaves people in just like not taking any action or leaning towards those extremes because they're looking for some kind of quick fix. And like I said, it's hard to believe that something is simple but very difficult to do, like eating less and moving more. And I think it can sometimes feel like coaches are fobbing people off a little bit when they're like, well, you're just not in a deficit. And it's like, well, that's not overly helpful. Like, it's true, if you're not losing weight over time, you're not in a deficit, but actually just telling someone that without then offering support as to, okay, you're not in a deficit. Why aren't you in a deficit? How can we help you create that long term so that we can lose the fat that we want to lose and then get you to maintenance and enjoying your life? Because it does always come back to energy balance. And I think what's quite interesting is that even when you look at things like sleep, and someone who's trying to sell you something might be like, sleep stopping you lose fat, when actually they're kind of half right, but they're selling you a bit of a lie, right? So it'd be sleep that might be impacting your movement, that and also might be impacting your hunger. So you're moving less and you're eating more, and that's what's stopping you lose fat, right? Same with things like your thyroid, or that impacting your basal metabolic rate. So it is still impacting energy expenditure. It's impacting how much energy you expend, and thus, on the same calories, you might not be in a deficit anymore. And I would say if weight loss drugs have proven anything, it's that it is still a calorie deficit, because that's exactly how they work. They are forcing people to eat less, and that's why they lose so much weight. And then the next point I would consider when you're thinking about, like, why have I found fat loss hard, or why is generally fat loss really hard, is that there's reasons that people overeat, right? And it might be hunger, it might be emotion, it might be boredom, it might be stress, it might be a combination of all of those things at different times. But ultimately, even if we have control over all of those things, we're biologically driven to eat more than what we need. And I say this because I think it's really important to take that, like, guilt away that people feel. So everyone's driven to eat more than what they need. It was a survival mechanism. And until in evolutionary terms, very recently, this had a huge impact on your likelihoods to survive and then pass on your genes. And then those genes obviously get passed on. And so those traits live on, right? That's how evolution works. Now, within the last sort of even 100 years, we've had this huge abundance of food. So we've got people who are driven to eat more than what they need, and then we just have this unlimited supply of food readily available without any effort. You don't even need to move. And then on top of that, we also have very little needs to exercise, right? So you have to kind of go out of your way to get the amount of movement in that you would need to merit eating even half the amount of food that's available. So the point I want to get across there is to take this shame around away from overeating, because it is totally normal. But it's just not helpful anymore in our environment to have those kind of biological drives. So you do need to work against them. But if you still feel a lot of shame about that, and you're almost trying to guilt and shame yourself into change, that's not going to work. It's not going to be enjoyable. I think it's like, accept your biology, accept that overeating is a normal thing. If it does happen, don't beat yourself up, but it's not productive for the outcome that you want at the moment. And then the final point I want to make on this about why fat loss is so hard is that if you want to make sure you stay lean, fit, and healthy in the environment that I just spoke about, which is very much an obesogenic environment. You can drive everywhere, you can order Uber Eats, there's loads of very, very calorically dense foods for you to enjoy that have also been made to be artificially extremely tasty, so they're really moreish. If you live in an environment like that and you don't actively choose not to just follow the norm, you will put on weight. And this is why the norm in the UK is that people are overweight. And this is why, I talk quite a lot about this kind of fuck average ethos, because you don't want to be average. And that's because the average person is overweight, inactive, and that's probably true for the vast majority of, like, the Western world. And that means that if you do just kind of go with the flow and follow the norm and do what everyone else is doing, and if you don't pay attention to your own energy needs and the fact that you live quite a sedentary life and you don't exercise a lot, then you will end up like the average person. And everybody's here watching this because they probably don't want to be the average person. But on the other side of that, you have to accept that if you don't want to be average, you do need to put in some effort. And you do need to probably behave a little bit differently. And that might mean that, your mates all go out and have 5 pints on the weekend, but actually you're going to have one glass of wine, or you're going to skip the drinking sometimes, or you're just going to behave in a slightly different way. And one of the easiest ways to change those behaviors is to surround yourself with other people who support that behavior change or who have already made that behavior change. And it's one reason why group coaching is so effective, is because you have that support network, even if the people that you are physically around don't behave in that way. And then I want to come on to part 2, but I'm just going to check with what's happening in the comments. So excited for our next round of Commit to 6. This is Tony, one of my coaches. I feel so proud because I know every woman who joins us learns something so different and positive that they haven't before when it comes to fat loss and long-term and a long-term healthy approach. Sorry, I ruined that. So many tools and personal accountability and support accompany it, make it so special and unique. I love how much we teach people on Commit to 6 and clear the fog out of the way for them. Yes. Okay, right. So part 2 is how to actually apply this. And this is where you can kind of steal some of the coaching methods that we use, even if you're not joining this intake, which, by the way, starts next Monday, 6th of October. And I'll put the link at the end if people do want to join. And if anyone has any questions, keep firing them in. So part 2 is about how to apply this, because knowledge alone isn't going to get you very far. Now you need to action this. And this requires changing your behaviors and changing them for good if you want those results to last for good. And we always start this with changing your mindset. So I just picked out kind of 3 things that we do. There was way too much to go through, and then I got slightly overwhelmed, and I was like, how am I going to fit this into a really condensed and somewhat interesting thing? And then I realized, don't try and do absolutely everything, and just pick 3 key parts. So a few little things that we do differently on Commit to 6 that make it more effective. The first is that we start with mindset work. So as soon as you sign up, you will be sent, this is before the program even starts, you will be sent what we call the mindset prep. And it's basically me getting in your head and brainwashing you, but in the most positive way possible, to undo a lot of the negative self-talk and the fear of failure, and to really set yourself up for success, and this time to be different. And I would say that this and the psychology aspect of it is just as important as the diet and exercise components. The other thing that we do a little bit differently is we use range targets. So we don't have rigid numbers that mean that you fail as soon as life happens or one little slip up happens. You'll be given a range to work within. This is quite a simple concept, but it actually has a huge impact on the results that people get. And if you stay within this range, you know that you will never be going backwards. So we set these, in fact, I set all of them personally for each person that joins. And sometimes the coaches will tweak them depending on what's going on, or if someone gets injured, or they're going on holiday, or we need to reduce calories slightly, or even we need to increase calories slightly because maybe they've decided they want to run a marathon and their expenditure's gone up. So they will be tweaked, but generally, the idea behind the range targets is that you never go backwards. And we use these for your calories, your steps, your protein targets, your workouts, your sleep, and any other behaviors that you're looking to improve. So you can use it for various things. And this isn't guesswork, right? If you stick to these for the 6 weeks, you will be blown away with the results that you get. And we get this every round. It seems so simple, but it has this massive impact. And they're essentially to stop people falling for this all or nothing mentality that is usually what trips people up on a diet. And because the targets are specifically set to you, you'll find that every single day, if you stay within that range, you get closer to your goal. And if you do that every day, even if some days you get significantly closer because you've managed to hit that optimal side of your target, and other days, you might be sitting around maintenance, but the important part is you've not gone backwards. And what trips most people up on a diet is actually their bad days. And I've never found a really articulate way to say this. maybe I should really do some like thinking around this, but basically your bad days ruin your diet. And if you understand that your fat loss results, so your fat loss results, say over 6 weeks, come from the average of your energy expenditure compared to your energy intake over a 6-week period. So if you know that and you're like, right, well, I want to make sure that that average is lower because I want to lose fat, what most people do is they will try and lower their calories as much as possible to the point that it's not sustainable for them, and they end up overeating at other periods of time. And so they've got like, I don't know, 1,200 calories some days, but then they've also got like 3,000 calories plus on other days. When you set a realistic range target, let's say it's like 1,500 calories to 1,900 calories, and you never sway, you never go out of that, right? You stay within that for a 6-week period of time, I will guarantee you get better results. And what we try to get people to do is like, obviously you want to stay at the optimal side of that target, but the upper end of that target is usually just below your maintenance. So even when you're near that, actually you're still moving forward, you're still losing fat, but just not as fast as the days that you can stick to the lower side of it. And that has a huge impact on the results you get by the end. And then the final point on application I wanted to make is on focusing on sleep, mood, and energy first. One of the reasons that we do this is because the demographic of women that we primarily work with, although it can impact anyone, but they're usually perimenopausal-ish age, have a lot of life stress, like everybody does. And I actually think life stress is a good thing. You're normally stressed about something because you really care about something, right? So having life stress isn't a negative, but it doesn't mean that it's always easy to deal with, right? So we often get women who feel pretty burnt out, have a lot of life stress, often have kids that they're trying to look after as well, often have aging parents that they're trying to look after, often are trying to excel in their own career and keep on top of everything. And then they try and pile on top, and I know I need to lose fat. That's you're already basically drowning, and then it's like, okay, now I'm going to dip your head under the water. And it's like, no wonder people, give up on trying to do this. If you start with, let's build up your energy first, let's get on top of your sleep, let's get you in a good mood, and let's push building those things first, and then we work on fat loss, everything becomes easier. When you feel good first, the fat loss side is actually quite easy. But when you're trying to force yourself to do all these things, when you don't have any energy to start with, that's a really hard place to start. So as part of Commit to 6, we also have this energy formula. So if you're starting and you're kind of like, I really want to change and I really want some help, but I actually already feel exhausted, I don't know if I can do this. Okay, I know. We literally have a plan for this. And if some of this feels a bit overwhelming, don't worry, because this is not a race. The whole point is that we meet you where you are. And this is why we set your targets personally. And I had a conversation with someone today, and it motivated this part of the talk, actually. Taking the pressure off and fully committing to the outcome is one of the best things that you can do, and it applies to any goal. So it doesn't have to be that you're joining Commit to 6 and you have a fat loss goal or a health goal or a body composition goal. It could be that, I don't know, you've got a goal of buying a house or going on an amazing holiday or building a business. Sometimes we put these really like plucked out of thin air time pressures on ourselves that are the things that trip you up. And I get it, because sometimes time pressure can be good, right? If you give yourself too long to do something, often you never end up doing it. But sometimes time pressure, especially with the big goals, just makes absolutely no sense, right? So as an example of this, if you had a goal of, I want to lose 10 pounds in 10 weeks, but actually it ended up taking you 12 weeks, like you've failed, but like, does that matter? No, not at all. But the changes that you would have to make sure that you achieved it in 10 weeks compared to 12 weeks might be the things that trip you up, right? Dropping your calories really low, missing out on social occasions, so you start resenting your diet. Those kind of things that actually, if you've just been like, okay, it might take 2 more weeks, but that's all right. Like, doesn't really matter, right? Or if you had a goal of, I want to be a millionaire by the time I'm 40, but actually you didn't achieve that until you were 41. Who cares? Like, it literally doesn't matter. You've just plucked out this random number in your head. And that makes it really easy to tell yourself that you failed. So if you're joining Commit to 6, I want to remind you, like, it is not a race. When you fully commit to the outcome, you stop putting this insane, unhelpful amount of pressure on yourself to achieve everything and do everything exactly right within a 6-week period. The whole point of this is it's lifelong change. It doesn't matter if it takes a little bit longer. It doesn't matter that there will be inevitable bumps on the road. Most people mess up their diets because they rush it and they put this pressure on themselves to do it in a certain amount of time and in a certain way. And they forget that they're human and they have lives and they have responsibilities. And actually, that's a good thing. You know, you'd have a very boring life if nothing happened for 6 weeks. That's not realistic. You will have slip ups. There will be inevitable things that you can learn from. But instead of seeing that as, oh my God, I failed because I missed a week or something happened or I missed a few days tracking or I don't know, whatever, life happens. Instead of learning from it and moving on, you use it as an excuse to give up. Like, you're never going to actually get that end outcome result. And something really kind of magic happens when you completely commit to the outcome and let go of the like insane time constraints around them. So for example, I don't know, I commit fully to achieving a healthy BMI range and I won't give up even if it takes a little bit longer than I wanted it to. And realistically, most people don't know how long that actually is going to take, and they pull out, you know, like, I saw someone else was losing 2 pounds a week, so I assume I could just do that and I'll just decide that it's only going to take me 6 weeks to lose these 12 pounds. And that might be completely unrealistic for you. And you don't know where the other person started. Or it might be a man that weighs twice as much as you do, and that's just completely never going to be a rate of fat loss that would be realistic for you. Or it might be, you know, a goal that's not related to fitness, and I'm going to save for this dream holiday, even if it means that I need another year of saving and I have to go next year instead. My point here is, like, don't give up on your goals just because you randomly decided that it needs to be done in a certain period of time. And then I'm going to get on to questions, but if you do want to join us for our October intake, starts the 6th of October, which is next Monday. This will take you to the Commit to 6 website. You can find out a bit more about it. You can also WhatsApp me from there if you have any questions. You can get signed up. You can get working on the mindset side of stuff. We do have limited spaces because we do one-to-one check-ins. So actual humans are checking in with you one-to-one, and this isn't a cookie cutter plan where, you know, there's no contact with people. So we do have limited spaces. There are 32 spaces left when I started recording this. So there's not many spaces left. They went very quickly, this intake. And anyone here who's watching who's either done Commit to 6 or more so who's on Committed, which is our continuation program, will attest to the relationship that they build with their coach. Like, it's a very strong relationship. And that's such an important part of getting results, is feeling like you're fully supported and understood by someone. So if you've liked what you've heard today, and if you want more from life, and especially if you have a bit of a fuck average attitude, then we would absolutely love to have you, and you can get signed up here. And then one more thing I wanted to mention, because another conversation I had today that was really interesting was about guilt around, well, they actually didn't say investing in themselves. It was about guilt around spending money on themselves. So I was inspired to add this little bit. And I think a lot of people, especially women, especially mothers, feel quite guilty about spending money on themselves. And one of the biggest reframes that you can take on this is that it's not spending on yourself, it's investing, and to try and make a distinction between the two. So when you're investing in yourself, the whole point is that you get more back than what you put in, right? Investing in yourself will make you, especially if you're investing in your health, makes you more resilient. It makes you better able to handle life stresses. It makes you more able to enjoy the ups and downs of life, and you become a better version of yourself, not just for you, but for anyone around you. And I mean, I'm lucky enough that I got to see my mum yesterday, but if you're lucky enough to also have your mum in your life, I bet the biggest gift that she could give to you is her health. And I get that, like, you know, but as you get older, your parents get older and their health becomes even more important. And if you've got young kids, you might not really be thinking in that way. But trust me, like, being a role model to your kids and seeing you invest in yourself, invest in your health and fitness. And I don't just mean like sign up to Commit 6. I mean, you know, in any way, whatever's the investment for you. And I also don't just mean financially, I mean the time, right? Like that has a huge investment in, like, okay, I see my mum making this time to exercise. That will have a huge knock-on effect on them. And then you become like a better, happier, healthier version of yourself, not just for yourself, because you absolutely deserve that yourself, but also for everybody else. So an investment in your health is the best investment that you will make. Yeah. And I thought that was like quite a nice little reframe. Lisa, why are you saying I'm funny? What did I say that was funny? Hayley, I'm so excited for the next intake. It's been so amazing getting to know so many phenomenal people in the group. You'll be joining a great team. Tony is my absolute rock. She sees me through everything and her support is so valuable. It keeps me semi-sane, not wholly sane, because obviously I'm me and that will never be that. Yeah, Emily, you're never going to be sane, but that's why we love you. It'd be boring. The best thing I have done, learned so much and have such a better view on food balance and being fuck average. Yeah. Best decision I ever made, Commit to 6, came for fat loss and got so much more. I was diagnosed with breast cancer shortly after joining, but decided to stay and had nothing but amazing support from the community, and coaches are the best. And now, and I can actually say this now, but now Lisa's even going to be a coach, right? So talk about life-changing and inspiring, like that's incredible. Okay, I do have some questions here. One of the questions is, I'm a personal trainer, but I would like to join. Is that okay? Yeah, we have loads of personal trainers join. In fact, 2 of my coaches are people who did Commit to 6 as coaches, and then I forced to come back as coaches to coach with us. But Tony was a coach that did Commit 6, and so is Hayley. So yeah, we would love to have you. Can't promise that, you know, you'll get to come back as a coach, but I'm fully open to this. And look, I spend half my time mentoring other coaches to help them build their businesses. You can come, you can learn, you can take bits that you like, you can put your own spin on it. You know, I'd probably say that coaches are probably going to get the most out of this, because you're going to get benefit not just to your own business, but not just to yourself, but also to your business. And then the other thing I'd say, and I really like this analogy, is that hairdressers don't cut their own hair, right? Like you still need the external view of things. You still need someone else looking out for you. It's still amazing to have that support. And I know that I definitely benefited from having coaches, despite the fact I'm a, you know, qualified personal trainer. I don't necessarily need a coach, but sometimes outsourcing that allows you to give more to your own clients and look after your own health as well, which is very important, you know. Okay, other question I have is not related to this, but is quite interesting. And it says, what is insulin resistance? Do all perimenopausal women get it? And then I had another question, I mean, maybe someone big did a post on this recently, another question that was quite similar, but it was more talking about a mention of some menopause coach saying that all menopausal women get insulin resistance and need to train in a different way. For some reason, I can't even remember exactly what it was. But anyway, there seems to be quite a lot of discussion about that. So hopefully I can clear it up a little bit. Insulin resistance isn't like an on-off switch. So everyone is on a kind of spectrum of insulin resistance, or the flip side of that is like insulin sensitivity. And essentially what it means is how much insulin is needed to clear blood glucose levels. So if you are very sensitive to insulin and your tissues are very sensitive to insulin, then you won't need as much insulin to clear blood glucose levels and for those glucose levels to stay in a healthy range. As you become less sensitive to insulin, or as you develop insulin resistance, and that usually comes from being inactive and storing more body fat, which is a side effect's probably not quite the right term because that makes it sound like it will happen, but it's often correlated with aging. It's often correlated with going through the menopause. So if you do become more insulin resistant, then what happens is you need more insulin to clear the same amount of glucose and to stay in that healthy glucose range. At a certain point, the cells that produce insulin will not be able to keep up with the demand. And what happens then is you start to have these elevated levels of glucose. And after a certain period of time, they'll become so elevated, if you don't do anything about it, that then you become diabetic. So that's essentially what insulin resistance is. But when you look at the things that help insulin resistance, it's not, some fancy supplement. It's not like some specialized diet or something. It's like the basic things you need to do. Things like sleep impact insulin resistance as well. So like sleep well, don't eat too much, don't store, excessive amounts of body fat, because that's one thing that we know drives insulin resistance. Make sure that you exercise. Having more muscle mass. Muscle is your biggest site of glucose disposal. So if you have more muscle, you can dispose of more glucose quicker. Moving after meals makes a big difference as well. That helps clear blood glucose quicker. But no, not all menopausal women will suddenly become insulin resistant. Like, it's another just fear-mongering tactic to get you to sign up to their thing, because they've used big words that they probably don't even understand, and now they're trying to get you to sign up because that's the one thing that's missing for you. It's not true. And if you're doing all the right things, like resistance training frequently, making sure you get your steps in, really thinking about the food that you're eating and not eating too much of that food, sleeping well, like that's everything that you should be doing to optimize your insulin sensitivity. Your talk mentions perimenopausal individuals in the middle of their careers, people who have tried lots of diets. What about postmenopausal women, fairly fit with weight training, spin, etc., but want to focus on fat loss and muscle strength and seem to remain static regardless of what I do? We can absolutely help you as well. That was just an example of when a lot of people come to us, but we have loads of women who are postmenopausal or aren't menopausal yet, anywhere in between, or have, been through cancer treatment and are menopausal for different reasons, or, have no issues with menopause whatsoever. In fact, we even have a few men. But yeah, we can absolutely help you see what you're doing, make sure that you're optimizing your efforts where you're putting in those efforts. You'd be surprised at the difference like a few tweaks can make, and having proper programming, especially if you're someone who's been resistance training for a period of time or exercising consistently for a period of time, making sure that you actually have proper programming and progressive programming, and that the diet suits you. Because I think this is like part of the problem. If you've tried lots of diets, but those diets have been like diets in themselves, as opposed to ways of eating that fit you and your lifestyle, that's the issue. It's like what we do here is we take the fundamentals that we know are going to work, the principles that actually get you results, and then we fit them into your life, as opposed to being like, here's a low carb diet, stick to it, or here's a specific time frame of eating, of intermittent fasting, just stick exactly to that. And it's like, well, I work shifts, that doesn't work for me, or I don't like eating at that time of day, or that means I can't eat with my partner. Like, no, we're going to make sure that this works for you based on where you are in your life, and in a way that you don't resent, because you're never going to stick to something you end up resenting. Okay, those are the questions I had. So I'll stay around for another 5 minutes, probably just, chit-chatting to myself. But if anyone has any other questions or topics or things that they've seen. Oh, actually, that's a complete lie. I did collect some more questions, and then I obviously just forgot to find them. Hold on. Okay, here we go. God, so many questions on NAD, and I've already covered it, so I'm just going to send people there. Thoughts on the primal bod approach? I don't know if I'm intrigued or scared. I mean, the fact, like literally what I just said about sticking to something very specific that's not built for you is probably quite stupid, but I'm not going to lie, I've never actually seen this. So Let's see. Primal bod. The modern human. It's weird that they call it primal, which makes me think not modern human. Wow, it's $2,000. It's not the calories or the lack of exercise. It's your modern lifestyle clashing with your primal DNA. Yeah, no, I'm going to say it's a strong no for me. Yeah, no. I would highly recommend avoiding that. And here's the thing, some people will be like, because no doubt, like I'll do a post on something like this, right? And someone will say, well, it worked for me. Yeah, because you stuck to a calorie deficit, but you didn't have to stick to this ridiculous diet. And I think a lot of people say, well, it works if you stick to it. Yeah, but you don't have to stick to something that overly restrictive and unenjoyable. And often a lot of these diets, if you do actually stick to them long term, leave you with deficiencies or very poor relationship with food, neither of which I am guessing that you would, want as an outcome. Now I've lost my page. Little bit worried there is primal in the title. Prob means that you have to hunt something. I don't even think you do. I don't know what it is. I mean, it doesn't really tell me very much, just a masterclass. I reveal the 3-step system I use to help women lose up to 20 pounds of stubborn fat. I mean, the big red flag is it's not about calories and it's not about lack of exercise. So, yeah, interesting. Although I'm willing to bet this person is going to make you eat less and move more, or otherwise you wouldn't be losing 20 pounds in 6 weeks. Classic. And I guess this is how people sell stuff, right? I'm 67 and I feel lethargic all the time. Would commit help me, or am I just too old? You're not too old, babe. Of course you're not. You're absolutely not. And yes, we can absolutely help you. And we would start with this like energy first formula where we really get your energy up, get you energized and not feeling lethargic anymore. And then we can look at what other goals that you have. But this is what I've really been focused on at the moment. Like my main goal is to have as much fucking energy as possible to just like live the life that I love and be at my best for work and for my clients and for my friends and for my family and just like make the most out of life. I've become very aware that like this is like the one life that you get, so you want to feel your best. Not a question, but a thank you for the answer on the podcast /science versus bullshit. Mine was the one holidays every 8 weeks, not abroad and always self-catering, and whether to try to reduce calories from maintenance to the usual deficit ones, as I seem to have settled a little, but the answer made total sense and so helpful as always. So thank you. You're so welcome. Okay, right. Well, I'm going to wrap up there. If you are interested in joining Commit 6, you can shoot me a message on Instagram at ESG Fitness, or you can message me here, or you can message me on WhatsApp, or you can find out more about the program by going to the QR code. But we would love to have you. Like I said, there aren't many spaces left. We coach you, we support you, and it's very much an individual one-to-one support and coaching, so we can't have more than the allocated number of people. And Kaz just saying, I've never thought about stress like that and it being a good thing. Okay, suggestion before I leave, everyone go and watch Alia Crumb's lecture on this. She did a TED talk on this and it totally changed the way I think about stress. And she gives examples of like how stress, one thing that actually I don't think she does talk about, it's more just like, if you think about the things in your life that are most stressful, it's normally like, what do you stress about most? It's normally like your kids, your house, your job, your parents. Okay, cool. So should I take all of those away? Like, no, they're the things that you care about most. That's why you're stressed about them. So they're all good things. You should be like grateful that you have these stresses. Doesn't mean it's always easy, but it does mean that it's a good thing. And then this lecture is really interesting because it talks about how if you frame stress as a positive thing, it becomes a positive thing. If you frame it as a negative thing, it becomes a negative thing. And when you look at examples of this, like people perform at their best when they're under stress. But you can also argue that people perform at their worst when they're under stress in different examples, right? So you might have a picture of someone like, I don't know, loads of deadlines and they just kind of crumble under the pressure. But then you also think of someone winning the Olympics and setting a world record. And actually, they would have never done that if they didn't have this insane amount of stress and pressure on themselves at that point. So you can use it to your advantage. And a lot of her work's really interesting. So this researcher, Alia Crum, she also did all the research around how you think about food and the impact it has on your satiety. So there's a really famous study, and if you've done the Commit to 6 prep work, the mindset prep work that you do when you sign up, you'll already know all about this because I've probably harped on about it a million times before. And she talks about how there's the same milkshake labeled in 2 different ways, and it has a completely different impact on your hunger levels. So they measure ghrelin in your blood, which is a marker of short-term hunger. So ghrelin levels increase before a meal and, what's the right term? Stimulate you, drive you to eat. So before like dinner time, ghrelin levels will start to increase and then you'll end up eating. And then after a meal, they reduce, depending on how satiating you found that meal. And when you think that you've consumed like an indulgent milkshake, your ghrelin levels reduce afterwards because you're like, wow, I've had this big indulgent milkshake and I should be really full, so I feel really full. And then if you're given a kind of slim fast milkshake that's meant to be lean, doesn't have any calories in, etc., your ghrelin levels don't reduce as much, so they stay elevated afterwards. So you are physiologically hungrier after the slim fast milkshake. Now, the plot twist in this study is that the only difference is the labeling of the milkshakes. So it's exactly the same thing that they had consumed, but one of them reduces your appetite afterwards, and the other one keeps it elevated afterwards. And this is completely to do with your psychology around what you are expecting from that food. Anyway, a lot of this we talk through in the mindset prep of Commit to 6 and your expectations, and even more broadly, like your expectations of dieting. If you go into a dieting phase expecting to be hungry, guess what? You will be. If you go in and you focus on food volume and fueling yourself, and you think about, what kind of energy do I want to put in my body, and you're not thinking about depriving yourself and essentially eating as little as possible, like you won't be as hungry. And actually it does become a lot easier and you do feel a lot better on your diet. Okay, right. Alexandra, I have to go. Thank you and highly recommend joining. Okay, well, we'll wrap it up there. Thank you everyone for coming and for your time and attention. Have amazing evenings and I will talk to you all soon. Bye.